I'm not sure how universal this experience is, but for me, the number one method for determining which games I would play as a child was, what did my parents have installed on our chunky family PC? My thrilling catalog of options included chess, Age of Empires 3, and Jewel Quest. Forget Candy Crush, though I don't even think it was around at this time. Jewel Quest was the elite Match 3 game. Instead of chasing high scores, the goal of each Jewel Quest level was to methodically flip every single tile on the board to gold by completing matches on them. Rather than overloading your brain with needless dopamine, it turned Match 3 games into something strategic and satisfying. Slap some Indiana Jones ripoff story over it, and you had peak. Now that I have grown older, become a game developer, and have realized, to my great disdain, that there are 5 billion Candy Crush clones and far less Jewel Quest clones, I wanted to do something about it, iterate on the idea, learn what made the game so appealing, and put my own spin on it. But I'm a busy fellow, and I never really had a good excuse to, so the idea sat on the shelf for a while. And then the perfect opportunity for it arose. Actually, no, I lied. It was not perfect at all. Holojam, a game jam centered around creating fan games for Hololive, a popular VTuber agency, was announced to happen from December 30th to January 13th. If you look closely, you will notice that A, this is during the holiday season, and B, I, Mocha Devs, am flying on January 5th and 6th to go live at a game dev cult in Europe for a month. If we factor in these variables, we will come to the result that it is really inconvenient for me to be doing this game jam at this time. It is so inconvenient that I make my little pity post about it on Twitter, and then the game jam organizer replies telling me to log in. And when I join the game jam server, still unsure if I will enter the game jam, just trying to get more information, they at me on site telling me to log in. Okay. Flattery will get you everywhere with me, so sure, I'll enter the Holojam. I've wanted to do it for a while, and sure, it's inconvenient with everything going on and the video I need to edit and the game jam that I'm planning to do in January that's different than this one. But there's no time like the present, right? I'll just log in. I'll just be responsible and I'll plan things well and I'll get the game like at least 90% done by the time I fly. Then things will be fine, right? Right? To be clear, I did not plan from the start of this game jam that this would be a Jewel Quest themed thing, but before Holojam even began, they dropped a teaser for the theme, hinting about something to do with time. Specifically, something that stood out to me was time as a resource, something you can gain and lose. Similar to flipping tiles in Jewel Quest. Pondering. So with my team, we decided to make... Actually, let's pause and talk about my epic team. Those of you who have watched my other videos will be familiar with two of my teammates. Minnie, an amazingly talented artist and writer, and Ven, a genius of a musician. We were also joined this time by Selrev, a programmer and designer, and Nora Neko, another illustrator. I handled programming as well, and then I guess I ended up being a project manager? So yeah, notably, this was a bigger jam team than I'm used to working with. While at work and in more professional circumstances I've worked with even larger teams, a 5-person team for a 2-week project was new. More people means that there is the ability to add more scope to the game, yes, but it also means more talking, more people needed to make a decision, and more management. But there'll be a bigger game! But wait, Mocha. Didn't you say you wanted 90% of the game to be done before you flew to another country, aka just 6 short days of work during which New Year's happens? Yeah, we'll make it. So here is the pitch. The theme is Deadline. One of the VTubers in Hololive, Oro Crony, the Warden of Time, is tasked with restoring everyone's memories after they have mysteriously lost them. The only way to do so is by reforming them with magical Match 3 boards. If she doesn't fix them all within 8 hours, the timeline dies. A dead timeline. A deadline. We called it Match Made in Time. And then we escalated the idea. Besides the tutorial, every character would introduce a unique mechanic inspired by their personality. This chalked up to 7 talents, a final boss, 4 levels each, and 30 levels total. All to be accomplished in a 2-week jam. Hype was up though, By the end of day 1, which was only 4 hours long, I had the base match 3 mechanic playable, as well as systems in place to easily make a great variety of levels. This was its own problem, honestly. It was fun after all. So I kept testing it for hours. In the meantime, our 5-person team brainstormed ideas for the talents. We wanted every talent to have a cool mechanic tied to each of their levels, something that would serve to both spice up gameplay and to have a little fun mechanic-driven narrative moment. Yay! For example, Kayla is a blacksmith in Hololive. She's known for being a big grinder of games, and thus all her tiles need to be worked on twice before turning gold. Gigi is a zoomer with a hyper attitude. Her tiles fade over time to reflect her need for speed. Bae is a chaotic rat who has had a joke since day 1 of being flipped upside down. So yeah, she flips the board upside down after a certain number of turns. And those are just a few. I don't want to spoil all of them, but every new mechanic made the game better. It also made it longer. As a little aside, Minnie and I have had a problem of our own. You see, every single game jam we've done recently, we've been like, no, we are not going to have a narrative game. We will save narrative for bigger long-term projects. But man, it's just so awesome to have a narrative. Doki Boom Dash had 2K words of writing. Our VTuber fan artist game had 4K words, and this one, yeah, it was supposed to be a 6-day-ish project, so not that many, right? 10,000 words, that's a good amount. So hey, let's do a little bit of math here. 30 levels plus 10k words equals, ding ding ding, a long freaking game. Yeah, so our game takes like 1 to 3 hours to beat depending on what self-imposed difficulty you set for yourself. Yes, this is a realization that hit on day 5. Yes, I have given up on the more or less finished by day 6 dream at this point. But we only really had the time to have a discussion about this when I was making my way through one of the busiest airports in the world, the Heathrow Airport, desperately trying to navigate my way through while trying to find my flight for my layover. And I was just messaging everyone on this while going through security. Airport troubles aside though, this is a weird situation to be in. Usually when you cut things for a game, it's for scope, or because the game is too bloated or unfun, or something like that. But game jam games have a certain level of social construct to them. It's considered good manners, as well as healthy for the community, to play and comment on other people's games, and ideally they'll be playing yours in turn. A mutually beneficial situation. To account for this, a lot of game jam games are 5 to 30 minutes long, if that. So for your game to be 1 to 3 hours long, an argument could be made that that was disrespectful to other participants. However, after some debate while rushing from airport gate to airport gate, we decide that the game is just fun. Cell went out of his way to ensure the levels would be challenging but short, and the variety of mechanics made it so the game was not boring. Playtesters liked our game. To cut it short would mean making a worse game. So, yeah, I guess our game is long. Teehee. We did keep one thing in mind to help regulate length though. Items. A limited supply of helper items are provided on every level, which can make levels significantly easier. So, you might ask, what's stopping people from not just using all of them and robbing themselves of the more challenging experience? And to that I say, dude, I have no idea, but people love doing no item challenge runs. I severely underestimated how down people would be to challenge themselves. But regardless, for those who wanted to focus on the story, the helper items were there and served their purpose. 8 days in, and with 6 remaining, I landed in rural Sweden. If I hadn't locked in before, it was time to now. The team absolutely cooks. From now till the end of the jam, it is a bit of a blur. On top of work, I stayed up till 4 AM every night to finish this game. But to summarize, Cell's level design was phenomenal. He created smooth difficulty ramps, smart introductions to mechanics, and left no filler. Designing puzzles that are challenging but not frustrating is an art, and he nailed it. Nora Neko illustrated the board visuals, one of the most important parts of the game. They nailed clarity over chaos and created charming, readable tiles full of references. Nora Neko didn't have a lot of experience with game dev prior and absolutely knocked it out of the park. Minnie made an absurd number of sprites. She captured every talent's emotion and vibes so wonderfully, and on top of that, wrote 10,000 words, ruining her search algorithm in the process, and she also wrote an ending that made me cry. The sheer amount of work and speed that Minnie is able to get through on these projects is always insane to me. For audio, Ven did 5 whole complete tracks in 2 weeks, which is crazy. We had a menu track, a dialogue track, and 3 different battle tracks for the levels. After a certain amount of girls, the battle track would change to keep the levels feeling fresh, as well as heighten the stress of the whole situation. As for me, I am particularly proud of the bark system. The game already had a short narrative section directly before and after each level, but it felt a little bit too disconnected from the puzzles. To circumvent this, we decided to add a bark system. Depending on how full a certain percent of the board was, it would trigger a character bark. These would act as small bits of flavor text to show how a girl was reacting to regaining her memory. This had to hit the perfect middle ground between entertaining and not so important that people would feel bad if they missed it, as oftentimes people would get caught up in the gameplay and then oops. I did end up implementing this in the most scuffed way ever though. I just named dialogue JSON files the percent of the board that was full plus the girl's name, and if the board was that percent full, then the girl would do that bark. Yay! The final day of the jam was fairly chill. It wasn't the most chill ending ever, but I really only needed to— a new bug just drops! For whatever reason, suddenly all of the input doesn't work. Okay, the reason is that we tried to set it up so that input would not work while the board hadn't settled, and in trying to fix that, a bigger bug was caused, but actually the error just turned out to be an extra exclamation point in the wrong place. It was an easy fix, if a terrible panic causer. The game was uploaded with 3 hours to spare though. Yippee! Overall, people liked the game. We wanted the game to actually be a little bit emotional, with lots of funny but hits too close to home moments, and according to people's reactions, we succeeded. My biggest fear that the game would be too long for people was proven incorrect. People didn't care, and in fact, many people were impressed that we managed to do it in the given time frame. There were a few things I personally wanted to add, like a pop-up when the board reshuffles if there are no matches remaining for player clarity, or for Crony's face in the corner to change depending on the state of the board. By the end of the jam, I was just so tired that I didn't have it in me anymore. Working with new people for a jam was really fun though I work with a variety of people on larger scale projects, smaller and more intimate projects like game jams usually have me working with the same few people. Mixing it up again felt great. And that was the jam! I probably won't do any more fan games for a while unless I'm seriously incentivized to do so, but if a beautiful VTuber asks me to make a game for them, then that counts as a serious incentive. We got second in the jam overall, which I am very happy with. The other entries for the game jam were lovely, and I highly recommend taking the time to check them out. There is something really awesome about going full circle on this sort of thing. When I was a kid playing Jewel Quest on a chunky family PC, I don't think there's a world where I could have imagined being able to make a game. When you're creative, sometimes it feels like progress isn't being made, but I did the impossible for little old me. Anyway, I dedicate this video to everyone who's ever had to work on a creative project in an airport. If you liked the video, consider watching my others. I talk about the games I make, my opinions on making games in general, and various other dives into game things I find interesting. If you like those too, consider subscribing here and on Twitch. Now that I'm back from Europe, I'll be back to streaming and I'd love to chat. Okay, peace and love, bye bye!